Welcome, Dr. Jill. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about your new book.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about mindfulness with you.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for this discussion. I do, and I know you mentioned mindfulness in the book, but I have so many questions about the book itself. It was fascinating.
Oh, good.
Um, I think I want to start with maybe the basics, which is for a long time, I've accepted the idea that we have two hemispheres in the brain, and the left brain, is the rational, logical, thinking brain, and the right brain is the big picture, creative brain. And your book really did fascinate me because it broke it down really into four parts. And so I guess the first thing I want to ask is my understanding incorrect now?
Well, I think that we're just going to help increase the differentiation of what's going on inside of our head. And it's kind of like the better we understand our machine, the better we know how to get it to do what we want it to do. So it is true that our left thinking tissue is our rational mind that thinks rationally, it organizes, it's structured, it likes to control the external world. That is true. However, the biggest myth that happens in that thinking of the right is emotional and the left is thinking is that the right and left both share equally a emotional system, which means we have left thinking tissue, left emotional tissue, right emotional tissue, and right thinking tissue. And so instead of just thinking the left is off doing the thinking and doesn't have emotion, that's where the miss has been in our thinking as a society. And once we really realize that we have two very separate emotional modules of cells in our brain, one in the left hemisphere and one in the right hemisphere, then all of a sudden emotional conflict begins to make sense because it's actually different parts of ourselves having different emotions, different values, different experiences, different everything, including conflict.
Wow, so interesting. I have one other question regarding sort of how the brain works in general, which is, and I'm guessing again, this is a misconception, that we only use 10% of our brains.
Yes, that was a part of a paper written by the father of psychology back in like 1907. So we didn't really know a lot about the brain, but his comment was that we are not fulfilling our potential. And then somebody took off of that. Okay, we're only using 10% of our brain, and then that stuck because isn't that a catchy idea? And then it leaves. Oh, we're only using 10% of it. I wonder what the rest is doing, but I'm not going to really go and look and figure it out and use it. The fact of the matter is, neurons, the primary cell of the nervous system, they are little living creatures that are connected in networks, and they are there to be stimulated by the network and to contribute their genius into the network. So we are machines at a cellular level to stimulate and be stimulated by. So what that means is if there's a brain cell and it's in your head, and it is alive, you are using it. We just may not have any idea about what exactly it's doing, but we do have a pretty good sense about a lot of what's going on up there.
Yeah, I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's been a lot of advances in the last 10 to 20 years in neuroscience.
Oh, neuroscience has just gone leaps and bounds in the last really 20 to 30 years.
I think that's great. I think the more we understand them, maybe the more we can use our brains more effectively. And that, of course, leads to the topic of your book, which is whole brain living. So, what is that?
So whole brain living is exactly what we've really just said. It's recognizing that all of these brain cells inside of our head are amazing little things that we can have a relationship with. They work together in four different major modules: two emotional modules of cells, two thinking modules of cells, one in each hemisphere. And as soon as we understand that, then, when it comes to our choices, and people say, well, couldn't you made a better choice? Has anybody ever said that to you, Teresa? And
Only
it's
a few
like,
times.
yeah, I know. And it's like, well, don't you think if I'd had a better choice, I would have made the better choice? And it's like, so we don't know what our choices are. But by recognizing these four different modules of cells, which result in four different predictable skill sets, resulting in four different predictable characters, then we know what our choices are. And we can actually start making sense out of the conversations that are going on in our brain moment by moment by moment.
Yeah, which is constant. So one of the things that yesterday I could not stop thinking about this, which is really the connection between mindfulness and meditation, and now this new information to me, which is these four characters. And so I think I have always thought that when I am meditating, I'm tapping into what you refer to as character four, which we'll get into this in just a moment so people know what we're talking about. But in general, and I realize I have a very limited understanding because I just read the book and I really need to do a lot of processing about this. But I'm wondering what your take is on how mindfulness and or meditation tie into either how we work with these characters or if it's only affecting certain parts of the brain, some of the characters, or just in general, kind of, you can help me get started with processing this as to how I blend these two
Absolutely.
together.
Absolutely. So mindfulness is actually being mindful of, becoming aware of what's going on inside of our own head. Just stopping and pausing and listening to what am I feeling in my body? What are the little voices saying to me? What's the driving force? What's going on in there? And just that willingness to pause and bring your mind to the present moment and consider with an awareness what's actually already going on inside of the brain is step number one. First, I have to be willing. Second, I have to do it. Third, I have to stick to it. And in the stick to itness, once I become really familiar with what we call then the four characters that we'll talk about, then we get to know which character is saying which piece of the conversation. And by understanding what that part of our brain actually values, it makes sense to us that that character would have that to say and have that value structure of action. Another part of our brain has a completely different value structure, and so it's going to have a different opinion, and a different part of the conversation. So mindfulness really is bringing the awareness into the present moment and being willing then to listen to what's going on, but beyond listen, to then direct what do I want to be going on inside of my brain. And that has been, I think, the hard part for our society is, well, what does it mean to silence my left brain? It's just this voice that never shuts up. And then I have this other voice and it's not very happy and it never shuts up. And then they start arguing with one another. And then I just don't feel happy. And how do I even begin to do that? Well, the problem's been we don't know where we're going. Okay, so then we say, well, we're going to meditate, we're going to be mindful, and we're going to go into a silent mind. And people are going, that just doesn't work for me. I have no idea even where, because I got to know where I'm going. And so by knowing the four characters inside of our brain, knowing which part of ourself we're trying to tap into, all of a sudden makes it so much easier because now we know what road we're going to try to take. Where's the ultimate goal?
Yeah, I have to tell you, I did identify with each of the four types you describe in the book. I got a little concerned with character one when you described the closet because that sounds very familiar.
Your closet is really organized,
It
I'm
is.
hearing.
So I was like, oh no. But then I read the rest. I'm like, okay, I've got some balance here. But yeah, the number one is definitely a strong character. So since we're talking about the characters, so
Yes.
people kind of start to get this. Um, First of all, could you explain what the characters are and how you arrived at this perspective of how the brain works?
Yes. Well, I came to this in an awareness of, I'm a brain anatomist. So I study cells and which cells are communicating with which cells, with which chemicals, and what quantities of those. When I hear I understand that process, that cascade of events, and then what happens once it goes inside of my brain and where's it go. And this is how I think. So I think neuroanatomically. And so I was talking to an audience and I said, it's so delightful to be talking about the brain in this day and age because people know brain language. They love hearing about the brain. And it wasn't this way 30 years ago, I can guarantee you. And I said, it's lovely because people understand language like the amygdala and the hippocampus and the anterior cingulate gyrus. And it's just also exciting. But the fact of the matter is that we have two amygdala. And just in saying that, there was this audible gasp from the audience of, really? I have two of them? And I realized in that instant that people think that we have a emotional system. And if we only have a emotional system, then nothing makes sense in the way that we're processing information. So I realized that really working from the anatomy and helping people realize what do the different parts of the brain do, then that helps us understand better these characters inside of ourselves. So character one is going to be that left thinking tissue, and that's the rational brain, and that likes to it likes order, it likes to control people, places, and things. It's got a schedule, it knows how to get you there punctually on time. It's disciplined, it's critically analyzing, it determines what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. It has that moral code. And we all know this part of ourselves, don't we? This is our A-type personality that is effective in helping us create a life of order in the external world. So that's our left thinking tissue. Deep to that is our left emotional tissue. And so we have these two emotional groups of tissue, one in the left and one in the right. And we share the emotional tissue with other mammals. So this is our fight or flight, automatic knee-jerk reactivity. The difference, one of the primary differences between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, is that the right hemisphere is in the present moment. It's right here, right now. It's experiential in the present. It doesn't have a past and it doesn't have a future. So it doesn't have any of the worry or any of the current concerns or really any of the deep attachments, emotional attachments to the external world. So the right hemisphere, it's right here, right now. The left hemisphere has a past, a present, and a future. So all of our emotions in that little character two, that tissue was willing to take information from the present moment and process it, step out of the consciousness of the present moment to compare the present moment to potential threat from our past. So this tissue automatic jumps out of the present moment consciousness in order to save us. This is the alarm, alarm, alert, alert. So I see a creature swimming behind me, and it's like this tissue is going to say, oh my God, that's a snake. Snakes are dangerous. I need to push away from the snake and say no. So our pain from the past is going to be in that character too. So this part can either direct our pain blatantly by blaming others, being mean to others, by erupting and pushing away and saying, I want less of that, no, no, no. Or I can direct that pain on myself and say, I'm not worthy because I have stepped out of that magnificent consciousness of the present moment. And as a tiny little individual self with an ego, separate from the whole, separate from our higher being, then we feel isolated and small and constricted. So the little character two is going to have all of those emotions from the past. So I'm guessing you also know that part of yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Actually, and
definitely.
I do have to say, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, of course, but that part of my brain, because that was the part I didn't know it was the character too, but that was where I
Right.
started with really working, doing my inner work, because that was where the problems were coming from. And so it's been fairly tame until the pandemic. And all of a sudden it has revisited me in a powerful way over the past year. And so I
Exactly.
I think I think it's, I don't know, pertinent to think in terms of, w- even if we think we have it well balanced or we think we really understand our characters, that certain situations may really
Trigger.
trigger us, or make it flare up to the point that you think, oh my gosh, have I forgotten everything I've learned? Because that's part of what I went through this last year. Like, what is wrong with me?
Well, and you have been joined by millions upon millions upon millions of people during this pandemic, because all of a sudden now there is a real threat outside of us and we can't even see it. So we don't even know what to look for. We don't know how to protect ourselves or the ones we love. I mean, there really has become a real danger. And as soon as that circuitry, so both of those emotional systems, little character two in the left brain, little character three in the right brain, which we'll get to in a second, each of those never mature. They are our emotional systems, our emotional reactivity designed to save our life. So, like millions of others, you're in good company. We have all been struggling with this little character too. And the thing about little character two is that this part of ourself comes out generally pretty forceful and pretty like mean or aggressive or towards self or towards others. And this is our fear. And fear has been very real because to that little character too, because it was willing to step out of the consciousness of the present moment and become an individual and a little ego self, all of a sudden it has things to lose. It has life to lose, and it functions in this megaphone of fear. And that megaphone of fear can either come out at like racism, it can come out like bigotry, it can come out like xenophobia, it can come out like rage. And it's designed to push away that which is not familiar. So, this pandemic really took us all on the roller coaster ride of our little character twos. And at the same time, it is the willingness of that character two's pain to feel our pain. And most of us are very uncomfortable feeling our own pain. And our pain is actually a message. And the message is, yes, immediately protect myself. But once my left hemisphere character one can come back online and say, we're using gloves, we're using wipes, we're using masks, we're doing everything that we can, we're wiping everything down, we're avoiding people, we're doing what we can do to help ourselves. Then character one is saying we're taking care of it, we're trying to fix the problem. Little character two, you can calm down. But that's the emotional reactivity of that little character too. And it is designed to save our lives. So we really owe it a sense of gratitude for its pain, but recognize that this pain, when we have a thought that stimulates an emotional circuit, and then that emotional circuit stimulates a chemical that will then dump through and run through the blood and run out of the blood, takes less than 90 seconds. So our pain, if we watch it, if we become mindful and we feel the trigger and we listen to our thoughts and we're watching our emotional system, our circuitries trigger, and then we feel this run right through of us, and we have this whole physiological response. But if we look at our watches, we can see that takes less than 90 seconds for that to run. And that is true personal freedom, because then I am watching the pain. I am not just being the pain. And the thing about being pain is we feel like we're going to be in that pain forever and it's never ending. And that's simply not true. Our pain is a physiological response inside of our brain. It is our thought circuitry made up of cells, our emotional circuitry made up of cells. Our physiological response is the byproduct of those cells in the thinking and the feeling. So just in recognizing that we are a biological creature made up of these billions of beautiful neurons, and we can observe them instead of just engaging in them, gives us a certain level of detachment. And knowing that I have these other characters inside of my brain, that once that 90 seconds comes and goes, I can pull that energy out of just that little character too, and I can bring my mind back to the present moment, which is really where my power is.
Wow. And so now the character three is also emotional.
Little character three is the emotion of our right hemisphere, and our right hemisphere is right here, right now. And right here, right now, Teresa, I got to tell you, right here, right now is pretty much a perfect moment. Wouldn't you agree? If we don't have a past, then we don't have to worry about the past. And if we don't have any future, we don't have to have fear about what's happening or about the great unknown, because all we know is right here, right now, and right here, right now. Oh my gosh, we're alive. And, we got eyes that see, and we got ears that hear, and we've got bodies that move, we've got hands and digits that manipulate the external space. So now the present moment is really this really exciting spot to be. And the emotion of the present moment is more experiential. What does it feel like to be inside of my body? This is one of the reasons why for mindfulness and meditation, what do? We focus on our breath. We bring our mind into what does it feel like to be inside of our body? We think about different parts of a body. body, because it brings the mind to the present moment so that we're actually shifting into that right hemisphere, character 3 or character 4. So right here, right now, the emotion is experiential. What are we going to do? What do you want to be? Where you want to be creative? We don't have the left brain judgment of right, wrong, good, bad. We don't have to fit inside of that. We get to be creative, and we get to make a mess. And chaos is the first step in the creative process. Yeah, I like chaos. You like chaos? I don't know. I've seen your closets. Well, at least I've heard about them. Put it that way. Mine are very organized too. But that's the ultimate goal, is to be balanced between all of these characters. And at will, there are times when it's totally appropriate for little character 3 to come on and let's go play. Let's go have an adrenaline rush. Let's go. Teresa, come on, let's go. It's a gorgeous day. Let's go. Or it's raining. Let's go play in the rain. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not making a critical judgment against it. It's inviting it in with curiosity, and it's playful. It likes to be with others, or it likes to be with critters, but it likes to.
Yeah.
So that's all. You know that part of yourself.
Excellent. And then, of course, character 4.
And then character 4 is the portion of our brain in the present moment that is thinking tissue. And it is this, so when you consider, when we come from the womb, we become that little first cell, the zygote cell. The DNA from mom joins with the DNA from dad, and we become a single cell, the zygote cell. And that zygote cell is inside of our mother's womb, and we are in symbiosis with the flow of our mother's energy and of our mother's blood, and we are just in relationship with that. That little zygote cell then multiplies its DNA, repackages it, multiplies the DNA, repackages it at a rate of up to 250,000 times per second. Per second, not per minute, per second. So there is a consciousness around those cells that are guiding all of that genetic material in the multiplication and the differentiation of those cells to manifest as this magnificent little fetal body inside of the womb. The consciousness that exists in every cell in our body is the same consciousness that exists in the universe when we don't have our past and our future distraction, and we are existing in the present moment experience. So the consciousness of the universe, if you will, the consciousness of our highest being, consciousness of nature, the consciousness of God, the consciousness of Allah, whatever your religious belief system likes to call that level of consciousness, that cosmic consciousness exists, and it is alive and well in the thinking tissue of our right hemisphere. And every ability we have is because we have brain cells that perform that function. So our ability to experience through meditation peace and euphoria is because we have cells that also perform that function. And that is that character 4. So just knowing now that we have these 4 characters at a neuroanatomical level, when I go to make a choice moment by moment by moment, I can at any point do what I call a brain huddle. And a brain huddle is when each of my 4 characters, which essentially make up my team, these are the characters of my brain team, they all come to the present moment, and we have this analysis of what are we doing and what do we want. And when we do that at a level of consciousness with all 4 characters on board, then I am picking and choosing who and how I want to be in the next moment. And wow, what a way to live your life.
That's very powerful. So how do we have that huddle? Like, you know what I mean? What are the steps, or how do we sort of, without sounding like we have 4 personality? Well, I guess it is kind of 4
Well, we do have
personalities.
4 personalities, and
Yeah.
we know, and most of us know each of these 4 personalities. So consider the fact that we have 4 very distinctive personalities. This is the first psychological paradigm, not to say we have multiple different characters inside of our head, but this is the first paradigm to say, based on the structure of the anatomy of the brain and what those cells are known to do, these are the character profiles that come from that brain anatomy. So it's just based on what's going on at the level of the brain. So a brain huddle, if I'm going to do a brain huddle, and I do a brain huddle probably 20 or 30 times a day just to keep it going very well, because when that little character 2 starts acting up, if I start feeling triggered, I need to do a brain huddle in that moment so that my other characters can come back online and help me out with what's going on in my little character 2. And so I just want it to become as automated as my other behaviors. So for the brain huddle, I call it BRAIN as the acronym. Of course I do, brain huddle. So B stands for breath, because breath, as I just mentioned, of course, for you, meditation, it brings your mind into the present moment. I am breathing in the present moment. I'm not breathing in the past. I'm not breathing in the future. I am in this moment, inhaling and exhaling. And I usually take my left hand because it's connected to my right brain, and I just touch my forehead and I just go straight down my face, and I'm thinking about it and I'm feeling it. And I'm thinking about those natural bumps that I have for lips and a chin and down my throat. And I'm just bringing my mind into that present moment. And I land on my chest, and yes, I feel my muscles, my diaphragmatic muscle contracts. It sucks energy and air into my lung system. And I exhale that as I relax it. And I just bring my mind into the present moment. So B stands for breath. R, recognize, as I'm in my present moment, recognize, okay, who called the brain huddle? Which one was I in? Is my little character 2 acting up? So character 1 came online and called that brain huddle. But who recognized which character was I in at the time? Which one was being dominant? Because they're all just bouncing around in there, like, and that's the thing. We think they're all bouncing around in there, and they're not. There are 4 of them. Let's differentiate who's who and appease them all. I mean, what a concept. Have them communicate, not fight. So R is recognize which of the characters am I in as dominant. BRAA is appreciate the fact that I have all 4 of these. So if I am in my little character 2 and she's feeling hostile or constricted, or what does it feel like inside of my body when I'm being that? Or what does it feel like to be in my character 1 when I'm busy, I'm at work, I'm being disciplined, the phone rings, hello, what can I do for you? It's not my warmest, friendliest part, but so that's not a bad thing. It's just honoring each of their existences, getting to know them inside of yourself, getting to know them in those around you. So A, appreciate that I have all 4, so that if right now, if I want to pick a different one, then I could do that. And that's the I. Inquire, in this moment, do I want to pick being a different one? So right now I could all of a sudden become my character 3 and become goofy and be playful. Well, no, that's not appropriate, because I'm talking to you. So so I'm going to stay in my 1. So inquire, which one do I want to advance with in this moment, in the next moment? And then N stands for navigate. Navigate moment by moment by moment. Okay, well, I'll try being a character 1. And then maybe you'll see a little snake back there and you'll start like freaking out. And so if you're like little character 2's now going, oh my God, there's a snake back there, Jill. And then I could come in with my character 4 and say, Teresa, look at how beautiful it is. Wow, I get to live where the snakes live. How totally cool is that? And that would automatically calm and soothe your little character 2. And then your little character 1 would come back online, and then we would continue our conversation. So the brain huddle is bringing all these voices together. B, breath. Pay attention to the breath. Bring your mind to the present moment. R, recognize which of the 4 characters is being dominant, and how often is it being dominant, and is that what I want? A, appreciate the fact that I have all 4 to pick from. This is my buffet of choices. I, inquire, which one do I want to be next? And N, navigate. Well, I tried my 1 and that didn't work very well. So maybe I'll come in as a playful 3. Maybe that'll work. Maybe I need to come in loving. Maybe that will work. Or maybe I see a snake back there and I trigger into my two. And then your four comes out and says, it's okay, Jill. It's on the other side of the glass. It's not going to hurt you. So the beauty is recognizing these different characters inside of our anatomy of our brain so that we do have the power to pick and choose who and how we want to be in any moment.
I really like that, and it's funny that you said or you mentioned something about with instead of them arguing with each other, because that is what I feel like happened to me, at least for several months last year, which is, and again, I didn't know these characters then, but as I mentioned, my character too definitely flared up, and it was in the form of judging. I was judging, I don't know, humanity at some point. It was just
Exactly.
uncomfortable for me. But another one was at some point, and I don't know how far along it was because California was shut down for a very long time, but it was all of a sudden I realized I'm not having any fun. So my character 3 had just checked out, which is I really recognized as I was reading, about each of these characters, like, "Oh, this
Okay.
is a great framework now for me to better." I may have
Beautiful.
recognized the feelings or the thoughts or the emotions,
Right.
but I didn't have a framework, and so I just
Right.
kept arguing, like, my 4 would argue with my 2 about stop judging people, and it was just this
Yeah.
constant,
Right.
symphony going on up there, so I
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so all this material does will do for you now is say, okay, I have more choices.
Yeah.
And who's dominating? Who's stealing the microphone? And it's usually that character one who needs to be right. It's all about I'm the boss. Or it's character two that is all about I'm not happy and I'm going to push you away and I'm going to push me away. I'm pushing kindness away, is what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
pushing kindness away. And then little character three's going, well, there are things I like to do. And the character one's going, you're a waste of time, and you make messes. And if you make another mess, and I just got to clean it up. And right now my closets are clean. So no, you can't touch anything. And little pig pen, that's what I call my little character three, is going, well, life ain't fun anymore. So I'm not going to be very happy. And if I'm not very happy, and then my character four is going, well, it's okay, little character three, little character two is having a problem. There's a pandemic out there, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can be compassionate and loving and open with myself, and I can allow all of me to thrive during this time because I'm not going to find any peace in my character one. She might fix the problems and keep me safe and make sure I've got plenty of hand wash and but and all that, and little character two needs that because otherwise character two won't feel safe at all in the world. And then little character two is going to be judging all those other people, well, they can't even wear a mask and keep me safe, and da 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 da. And so I'm going to push away from that. And little character three is going, we could have gone to the park for half an hour. That would have been really nice. And character four is going, que sera, sera. We're in a pandemic. We've never been in one before. We're watching ourselves. We're watching each other. We're watching humanity. We don't know how it's all going to end up, but what is. And aren't we lucky we have the life that we have for the amount of time that we have it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say I was grateful for the mindfulness training because that probably helped me keep my sanity, but
It
they
was
still,
your sanity, Teresa. It was your sanity. It
but
didn't help you keep it. It was,
that's
and
true.
you went and hooked into it.
To
Yes,
remember I had sanity, yes.
that's exactly right.
So speaking of, and of course, this last year has been rough on multiple levels between
Yeah,
not just the pandemic and not just the shutdowns, but all the racial injustice and all of the
yeah.
political stuff that happened was just like none of us, I believe, needed
It's
that
two,
extra
two,
stress.
two, 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 two. Character two, more character
Yeah,
two.
all year.
We've legitimized being our horrible little selves out in the world, and given that part of ourselves the microphone, and it has been where it's contagious. I mean, all of these characters. You walk into a room of character ones, and you become a pretty good character one, probably. You walk into a meditation group where everybody's doing the ooh, being Zen. Well, you're going to shift into Zen better. You walk into a two where everybody, or a character room where everybody's being character twos, and oh my, hey, I got something to say too.
Absolutely. Um, Another thing I found interesting in the book is you talk about addiction.
Yes.
And specifically, one of the things you mentioned, which ties into what we're talking about, is that alcohol consumption is up, I think you said 47% in the last year,
Yeah.
especially among women.
Yes.
And so, how can we use our 4 characters if we want to make a choice to maybe, hopefully, it's a temporary thing, but maybe to return
Right.
back to or go into a healthier lifestyle?
Yes. So the stats are just staggering. 47% of adults are saying they are drinking much more. 14% of women are saying they have become heavy drinkers. Self-reported. That's amazing. So and it's, alcohol is a coping tool, and we've been inside in our fear, in our constriction, many of us depressed, and thinking, I'll feel better if I have my friend. And the thing about the alcohol being my friend is it's my friend until it's not my friend. And alcohol is actually a depressant. So using an alcohol to lift my spirits, that's just not reality of what's happening inside the level of the brain. So putting in a depressant on top of feeling already emotionally disconnected makes me want to drink even more. And it becomes this cycle. So I do talk about addiction, and that it really is that little character too, who then begins to crave an addiction. So, it might be drugs, it might be alcohol, it might be sex, it might be technology, it might be just movement. It's, we all have that craving of something, and that craving tissue is a part of the emotional character two part of our brain. And what that means is that if I am going to go through therapy, if I'm going to rehabilitate myself out of some kind of addiction, addictive behavior, my little character two has to be on board. My character one can go in and say, okay, well, I'm going to cut down on the alcohol. I'm just not going to have it in the house. My character three can say, okay, instead of drinking at night, we're gonna go for a walk around the neighborhood, put on our mask, take the dog, take the kids, do whatever, or go do something other than pick up the glass. And character four is there to remind us that we are perfect and whole and beautiful just the way that we are, and that little character two is feeling some pain, and we're designed to feel some pain. And the thing about pain is, as I mentioned before, there's a 90-second loop of cells inside of our brain that if we really allow ourselves to have that pain, watch it come through us and watch it move on, let that craving come and go, and make other choices. And the other choices that we have to make are go and clean the closet, you know? I mean, isn't that what so many of us did? That pandemic gave us the cleanest closets. We threw stuff out. I mean, just we found alternatives, and so really, it's a matter of finding alternatives and recognizing that craving or that desire, it's simply a group of cells saying, boy, I'd like that. Well, I'd like a lot of things that I don't have, but I don't get fixated on it. But we get fixated when a circuit runs more and more, it begins to run on automatic, and it becomes habitual thinking. So now, because I've been drinking more and more and more, I think that I will feel better if I drink more and more. But of course, and now I have to have 3 or 4 glasses of wine every evening, which started out as a half a glass or a glass, because now I'm not having the same numbing impact that I had before, because now I'm raising my level of tolerance. So really coming back to the mindfulness of what am I doing? What's going on inside of my brain? What do I want to be going on inside of my brain? And what say do I have in shifting the automatic reactive circuitry already there into something that I purposely choose to create new habits?
Again, very powerful, and I think it's I mean, and again, it's just been such a weird time. I think this is good timing, as far as really finding these tools that we can use to better understand ourselves. You mentioned technology, and another area of the book that I found really interesting was about the different generations. And it's part of the reason it caught my attention is we do workshops, and one of them is about effective communication between all of the generations that are working together. So it was very similar in like sort of the facts of the differences between all the different generations, but you really talk about the effects of technology at the level of the brain. And I'm
Yes.
wondering if you could expound on that a little bit.
Yes, of course. It's so interesting, isn't it? The boomer and the GI, which was our parents, the boomers' parents, who fought in World War II. They well, where does one begin? I mean, this is like its own podcast, isn't it? So, but the fact of the matter is, how do we teach the brain? How does the brain learn? And boomers and older learned to read, learned mathematics, learned learning skills by using our hands and using left brain techniques. Typical school. That's how we learned. And so we learned left brain skill sets through left brain tools. So example, when we think about mathematics, what is 2 plus 3? Well, I learned 2 plus 3 as a, 2 plus 3, 3 plus 3, 4 plus 3, blah, blah, blah. And it was rote memorization. So that's the way that the left brain learns. It thinks numbers and it thinks, a 2 plus a 3. You don't have to think about what is a 2 and a 3. You just move on automatic. Of course, a 2 plus 3 is a 5. Excuse me. So the way that, starting with Gen X, which is right below the right under, I won't say below, but right underneath, younger than the youngest boomers. These kids grew up with technology. So about the time they're 10 to 15 years old, the internet starts coming on, computers are coming full force, and they're all about gadgetry. They are, I mean, these little 3-year-olds are training the boomers how to run their VCR and program it, right? I remember those days so clearly. So the Gen X become the little gadget people. And so they start thinking with technology in a way that boomers don't. Boomers use it. Gen Xers explore it and they change it. And then below that group, and they become a very efficient group of human beings, because now the boomers all need them to help teach us our technology. But then the boomers have children, and the biggest block of the boomer children are the millennials. And the millennials is the first generation that is actually sharing their bed with a little Teddy Ruxpin. Do you remember that little guy? It was a little automated bear that we would put in the crib, and it would talk to our babies, and it had a little heartbeat kind of thing so that it could self-soothe our little babies, because we were boomers, we were busy, right? And so the millennials grow up with their primary first relationship with this automatic electronic device. It becomes integrated into their physiology as a soother. So as that happens then, and these kids now have total access, it was our boomers' goal to give all of our children computers so that they could have all this computer learning. And so kids then started playing games in order to learn their left brain skill set. So when they go to learn 2 plus 3, we learn rote memory. 2 plus 3 is 5. They're looking at 2 chickens and 3 cows. How many animals are there? Well, there are 5 there. So the visual, the way that we learn with language in the left brain, or we learn in visual in the right brain, developed a completely different kind of animal based on how we learned our material. So millennials are primary right brainers because that's how they have learned. So now we're taking a world that is built by boomers and their parents with a very left brain structure. And, boomers are willing to work 60, 80 hours a week. And we're wearing those black circles under our eyes as badges of honor. It's like, honey, look how hard I'm working for you. And honey is thinking, well, I'd rather have you than not you, but that's another story. So we nurtured our children, our millennials, to not do it that way. So now we're looking at this workforce where we have these millennials who think in groups, they think collectively, they're more in the present moment. Their allegiance is to to themselves and the experience of how it feels to be working for this company, where the left brainers are saying, I need your commitment, and I need you to work like a slave, and I need you to compete for these awards, and I need you to, and I need you to be faithful to the job and to keep this job for 30 years, even though, I'm going to punish you. And the millennials are going, this doesn't feel good to me, so I'm going to go find another job. And there's this in these intergenerational. Now, millennials love working with millennials, and boomers, they get working with boomers, but the boomers don't know how to motivate the millennials, and the millennials are looking at the boomers going, I've learned from your mistakes and I don't want to be like you. So you're going to have to be kinder to me. You're going to have to give me jobs that I want to do and that I can be really good at. And I want to work with my friends on the project. And I want you to tell me what you want done, but you leave me alone and let me do it myself. And these are two completely different animals at the level of our brain structure.
Really interesting. And then you bring in the Gen Xers, which is a whole nother. Well, the one thing I find the most interesting about the Gen Xers is it.
Gen Xers or Gen Zers?
I'm sorry, Gen Zers. Sorry, Gen
Okay.
Zers.
They're the ones who are behind the
Yes, the
millennials.
Gen
Yeah.
Zers is I'm one because they seem so much more focused on things like the planet and
Yes.
climate change, and even at a
Yes.
very young age. And
Yes.
so in reading what you wrote, it dawned on me like, oh, I didn't realize because maybe of the way the brain is changing for them because of the way
Yes.
they're learning partly from that maybe character 4 where we're all
Yes.
connected and we're all it does
Yes.
matter what each of us does, and that's the
Yes.
first sign. I mean, that's, I find that a very hopeful sign, but it
Yeah.
does wreak some havoc in the workplace, but I think it's really hopeful
Yes,
for us
it
as a
does.
species, you know.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Well, and the thing about the Gen Z is when they were born, they came into a traumatized world. And then so they came in around 2000, 2001. So they came in with 9/11, and then they had 2008 with the financial crash. So they have learned self survival. Life is about survival, and survival isn't just about me and mine. Survival is about the us and the we, and we are not well. And as humanity, I mean, just look at all the consternation and hostility and the conflict, that conflict between the left brain value and the right brain value. So they're coming in completely developed in their right brain, but they're on alarm, alarm, alert, alert, because the world is this dangerous place and they're in it. They're not in control of it because the older generations are in control of it, and they're looking at this world going, oh my gosh, this is a dangerous, dangerous place. And so they have to go into their 4 to feel safe, but they're also deep in their anxiety. And so are the characters, so are the millennials. They're deep in their anxiety for different reasons, but they're deep in anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is I highly recommend getting the book, The Whole Brain Living, um, just to start mapping out how you can better understand your 4 characters and how you can use them to really
Yeah.
live a more meaningful life, even because you've got more control and you have more choice and you can make better decisions. And I just loved the book. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. I really appreciate it. And it's, when we're willing to take the pause and look at what's going on inside of our own head and know that we have more power over what's going on there than we've ever been trained. To me, that's a big exhale, a big breath of possibility. So thank you. And I appreciate your audience, because your audience is one that is interested in mindfulness.
Yeah, it's been a lovely journey so far, and you just added to it. So thank you and take care.
Thank you so much.